So, good morning, everyone. I just want to announce, like two major things is that, I am a fan of AW and I respect, the good things people say and I also respect the criticisms. And one of the other things is that, when it comes to professional wrestling, I do believe in giving other companies a chance because, it's just not good to be like, well, you know what, they're not my company, therefore it's all shit and stuff like that. You got to give things a try. So, there's two companies that I want to try out this year. That I want to go to Combat Zone Wrestling Tournament of Death in Delaware, and then I also want to go to TNA Slammiversary. And there's a couple of things I want to say about TNA Slammiversary. That first of all, I live in Connecticut. I live in New Haven, Connecticut, so it makes sense to go down to the UBS arena. And then the other thing is that the ringside seats were like around $150. So, that's really just nothing really. Like I was gonna go to SummerSlam, but decent tickets would be like $800 for both days. So that's obviously, out of the plan for me. But I am a little I am, excited to try out TNA wrestling. And I do want to mention that I was a big fan of TNA wrestling. I watched from 2006 all the way to 2014. Like, once they went off of Spike TV and I couldn't really follow them, that's when it really fell apart, really. And that's what happened to a lot of people. And I also am one of those people that will tell you guys that there were two TNA wrestlings. There was the original TNA wrestling, which was what I'll call the Dixie Carter era. That was like from the early 2000s when Jeff Jarrett was running the company until they got backing by Dixie Carter, and then until Hulk Hogan, Dixie Carter, Eric Bischoff, their bad choices, and Vince Russo, their bad choices got them kicked off television. And then from 2014 onwards, after AJ Styles, Sting, and a lot of people left the company, that's kind of like the new era of TNA, really, because they really had to, start from the ground up. So that was when Owl and Blue Anthem bought the company. You saw stars like Eric Young, Austin Aries, Bobby Lashley, Joe Hendry, Ken Shamrock, PCO, and a lot of other, Tessa Blanchard, and a lot of other, just changes in direction, really. And I'm a little kind of skeptical to see if I'm actually gonna like this or not. Really, the only match I'm looking forward to really is the table ladder chair match with Jeff Hardy in it. I've never seen Joe Hendry live, really, but being ringside, maybe getting to shake his hand would be really nice, really. And then also they have the TNA Hall of Fame. So I've not liked the TNA Hall of Fame because I've always said AJ Styles should have been the first person in. Fuck what anybody else thinks and stuff like that. It took them a very long time to get Abyss in there, one of the first originals. This year it should be James Storm, or maybe you can have Beer Money in it, or somebody like that, really. I just don't want a random person that did work for TNA, but they're mostly associated from another company. If they had somebody like Dixie Carter, I think that would be a bad choice. If they had somebody like Tommy Dreamer, that would be a bad choice. If they had somebody like Rob Van Dam, Rob Van Dam's my favorite wrestler. Even though it's a good choice, I consider it a bad choice. I want to see a TNA original. I think James Storm would be, a really good call. AJ Styles would be the thing of the night, really. But I am gonna try it out and see how I like it, really. But I do want to. But I'm happy to explain the context with you guys because there are two TNA wrestlings, and definitely it broke a lot of people's hearts, really, when they made so many bad decisions, with how they booked the shows, poor advertisement, pushing former WWE people, ECW people, burying young talent, having AJ Styles do stupid things he went from being the face of the company to doing the chicken, dressing up as the Turkey Bowl chicken, and then they also had the Claire Lynch thing, and they also. Even when they made him the champion, they had him lose to Kurt Angle. They had him, lose an overbooked match, his title, and everything like that, really, So it's definitely, a big wound for a lot of people because, you care about a company, you want them to do the right choices, but they keep kind of, fucking things up, really, for themselves, really. So it is kind of hard when you have your heart broken, really. But, I'm definitely going to give it a chance to see if I like it. And I would always tell people, too, that if you're a fan of professional wrestling, I would always encourage you, especially if you do online content. One of the big things you should always do is go to a different show. Really, like I have a lot of friends who like AEW, but I say, hey, you know what? I have some friends in Texas. They're gonna go to All In, but if I see them, I'm like, hey, if WWE has an NXT show, or if they have like a show in for TNA or another promotion, give them a try. Really, one of my goals is to go to all the big four stadiums, and I have the ability to do that. So AEW, they may have All In at Wembley Stadium next year, but I may go to the Tokyo Dome for New Year's Dash and to see how it is really. So, it's definitely really important to try new things, and it's also just really important to say, hey, you know what? If I've never tried this company, you know what, I'm going to give it a chance, really. And then also the other thing, too, is to be like, hey, you know what, if I haven't watched in like 5 or 6 years, I don't follow it, why not give it another chance? You may actually become a fan of it. And then the other thing I want to say, too, is that, because I live in Connecticut, they had an NXT show in Bridgeport. So, yeah, I did go to that. I didn't really enjoy it that much because Trick Williams, I was happy to see Trick Williams. I was happy to see CM Punk. That was a smart decision when they had CM Punk, come into NXT, really, just because you want to just like make that crowd feel something special, really. If you had a Ring of Honor show, you should have some of the AEW stars appear on that show. But yeah, those are some good decisions. But it was one of those things too where I was even like doing a video, and some people were talking to me like, they said AEW sucks and whatever. I was like, I like AEW, but I'm here because I just want to give it a chance, really. If I like this better, I'll watch both, really, But I went to a few NXT shows, and it actually helped me out a lot because NXT, I had to go to visit all 50 states, so they had a show in Clarksville, Tennessee. It allowed me to go have lunch in Kentucky, and knock off one of the few states that I had left to visit. So, it's important to try different things, really. So TNA Slammiversary, I'll give that a shot. I'll see if I like that. I'm a little pissed off they don't have a King of the Mountain match this year. They should have that every single year. I actually don't even know they have the 6-side ring anymore, because I know they had 6 sides. They went to 4 sides. I'm not sure they went back to 6 sides or 4 sides. But it should be interesting to see what they have, really. And I'm also not liking the card because the other matches like Moose. I think it's like Moose versus somebody for the X Division Championship, and then it's like Santina from Santino and Ortiz versus Joe Hendry versus Trick Williams. So that'll be a really interesting match, really. But you have somebody in the tag team division going after the TNA title. That would just be like if you had like Dax Harwood versus Hangman Adam Page at All Out or Double or Nothing, really. So that just doesn't seem like a good choice, really. So there's a lot of things that I may not I may do the show and that's that, really, but I'll give it a chance, really. And if they have Bound for Glory in New York City or an area that's close by me, I'll give it a shot, really. So I'll give it a try and tell you guys how it is when it comes up in like 2 weeks.